Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you're at, wherever you're listening. I'm your host, Jay. Before I jump into a fantastic intro, I do just want to give everyone a small disclaimer alert right here at the very top of the podcast. It's going to get uncomfortable today for the listener. It's not going to get uncomfortable for the conversation, but it may get uncomfortable for you listeners. We're going to be hitting a topic that is hot in the media right now, and multiple topics throughout the episode today that may be sensitive to some. If you're listening to the podcast, I hope it's not sensitive to you. But if you are new to this platform, you are new to the podcast, then welcome. But we're going to be hitting topics like gender and politics and how that affects children and things like that. So if those are uncomfortable topics for you, you agree or disagree, I highly welcome you to stay, have the conversation, listen to the conversation. But with that, I think that's enough of a warning label here at the very top. So welcome back to another episode of Patriarchy Principles, the podcast where we dive deep into faith, family, and leadership in today's complex world. Designed with fathers and families in mind, we aim to shed light on the principles that guide us in protecting and providing for our loved ones, not just spiritually, but in every aspect of life. Grounded in values of integrity, responsibility, and personal growth, we explore what it means to lead with courage and conviction. I'm your host, Jay, like I said at the top there, and today we have a thought-provoking guest who brings a unique perspective on some of the most pressing issues facing our society today, like right now. Joining us is Sasha, the author of Victims of Virtue, a non-fiction narrative that delves into her personal journey of overcoming abuse and trauma while critically examining the pervasive victim mentality in modern culture. Sasha holds a center-right viewpoint, and her book encourages readers to critically analyze situations where individuals declare themselves victims or oppressed, which happens a lot in today's world. She breaks down different types of victimhood, self-imposed, circumstantial, or true victims, and discusses how personal responsibility and accountability can take the lead to personal growth. Sasha also addresses the complexities surrounding topics like toxic masculinity, gender ideology involving children, and failures of government policies on addiction management. So all topics that we're going to try to hit today. As a survivor of sexual, physical, mental, and emotional abuse, Sasha offers a powerful perspective rooted in personal experience and 6 years of post-secondary education with a concentration in psychology. Much like yourself, Jay, I have a master's in developmental psychology. Today, we'll explore the impact of victimhood mentality, the distinction between masculinity and toxic masculinity, and the challenges posed by current societal narratives. We'll also discuss how personal responsibility can empower individuals to overcome adversity. So without further ado, Sasha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Super excited to have you. Super excited to jump into this one today. Like I warned the listeners at the top, if they're here on this platform, they're probably going to agree with most of the things we probably talk about today. But if you disagree, that's great too. If you disagree, it's good to listen to things you disagree with from time to time. That doesn't hurt you. That only helps you grow as a person and individual. Maybe you go and research something, you go and learn something. So anyways, it's an honor to have you with me today. Your journey to me is inspiring and eye-opening. So could you start by sharing a little bit about your background and kind of how Victims of Virtue came to life?
So my journey, the book delves in from birth till age 19. So all of the abuse and trauma is experienced while I'm a child. And I am very tactful in describing it. Like I'm not going to go into nitty gritty details because who the heck wants to read that? But I do lay it out. And I'm very, very open and honest about what happened and then how it shaped my teenage years. So actually most of the abuse occurred in my actual childhood, and then the teenage years were the aftermath, right? Dealing with all the chaos and trauma. And then Victims of Virtue, I originally had no anticipation of being an author. I had always known my story needed to get out because it is so wild, but I wanted to do it via speaking, via a stage and a microphone. I had no interest in being an author, but that just never manifested for me, right? So then I was, with all the policies and politics going on and all the woke ideology just permeating, I sat down and just started writing because I am a living representation that stands contrary to everything that is being preached. And again, my story needed to get out.
No, absolutely. And so one narrative that I've seen here, and the first thing that comes to mind when you mentioned being a victim of abuse and childhood abuse, and how that shaped you, is I follow a lot of different pages on my Instagram, right? I'm involved in a lot of different things. I like to, keep different perspectives and be involved in like different kind of posts and things like that. But one post that's out there that I saw recently is this abuse page that was bashing Trump because he was named the Times Person of the Year, and then it just said the 35 like victims of of him, or the 35 accounts or whatever is against him. So how do you as a victim, I'm not going to ask you who you voted for, even though if you're right of center and you're calling out woke ideology, I think it could be.
Truth be told, I'm a Canadian. I didn't vote for any of your peoples.
Well, she didn't vote for any of our people. That's fine.
Nope.
But identifying like right of center and calling out the woke ideology, but as a victim, I don't want to say victim, as someone who experienced abuse in multiple different forms, how have you not gone down that path? How are you able to speak against it and not go with those narratives? Because those narratives are probably very strong in the abuse survivor community.
They are. It's a mentality. And that's the difference. I do not possess the victim mentality. I possess the self-accountability, self-responsibility. You own a piece of whatever it is that happens. And if you are not going to take your piece, then suddenly you're a victim. And now you have no control of what happens to you. And everything that's happening around you is somebody else's fault. Well, that's a really easy path to walk when you take no responsibility for anything that's happening. But by doing that, you're abdicating all of your potential power and control of the situation to the whims of whomever is around you. And that I'm not okay with. If I can control something, guide it in the trajectory that I want it to go in, that's what I'm going to do. Hence, getting an education. That's a choice. And then there's a lot of self-accountability and responsibility into attaining the diploma that's attached to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where if you have the victim mentality, you get a failing grade. Oh, my teacher's such and such. Oh, this happened. This party happened, and then this drama happened. You come up with all kinds of twisted paths to explain how it's not your fault, it's somebody else's. That's how I didn't fall into it. I don't buy into that. It is my fault. To a degree, whatever it is, I made choices to land myself wherever I was, if that makes sense.
No, it does. To me, it makes sense because I understand where you're coming from, more or less, when it comes to the accountability thing, when it comes to that personal thing. And of course, there were elements of this for you, especially if you're a child, that were out of your control, that, you can't control the other person. You can't make their choices for you. You can't, say, but of course, there's also those choices to where you may have put yourself in a situation. You may have been at the wrong place or wrong time. Some of those things are out of your control. There are some things that are in your control. So I love that perspective and that narrative to where, the parts of it that are in my control are in my control. Like, it's your responsibility, right? You can't point at someone else and say, yes, they hurt me, they hurt me, they hurt me. They should have to fix me, right? All these people hurt me, they have to fix me. Versus, okay, yes, they hurt me. I can't control that they hurt me. That's the part that's out of my control. But I can control my healing. I can control how I rebound from this. I can control how I move forward from this. I can control my own mental health. I can control my own emotional health, spiritual health. I can control how I'm going to let this affect me, because it is a choice, right? Everything we do every day in life, it's called choice theory. It's a psychological theory, but it's called choice theory. I don't know who it's by. Too many psychologists and theories out there to name, but it's called choice theory.
100%.
Yeah, too many. And basically, we had a choice right now to have a podcast, and I either made a choice to talk about, some lighthearted, fun things. We're both parents and whatnot, so we could talk about that and parenting in Canada and things like that. It even goes back further than that. We're both on Podmatch. I had a choice to match with you or not. And you had the same choice, to match or not match. And we didn't even match until after we had a little bit of a conversation, because I was like, I don't know if there's a match here. I think there is, but I don't know what the match is. So I had a choice to
But that would be an example of you taking control.
Exactly.
You didn't just jump in. You took control of the situation, discussed some topics with me to figure out if it was a match. That's a prime example where you're not playing into the victim mentality. Instead, you took control of the part you could.
Exactly. And I can point all day at other people, right? But if that finger's pointing outwards all the damn day long, 7 days a week, 24/7, year after year after year after year, that's really going to damage your psyche, because you're never going to know how to take accountability. And so if kids are being taught that all the time, well, they hurt me, they hurt me, they hurt me, and they offended me, or they hurt my feelings, or they misgendered me, or they called me the wrong name, or all these other things, like what's about the you? What are you doing to take accountability for that in your life, to own up to it? Yes, those things happen. Those are out of your control, but the parts that are in your control, you can control. You don't have to be a victim. Victimhood is a choice. At least I believe it is. Yes, you can either be a victim or you can be a survivor. I think there's a big difference there, personally.
think I think you're both at one point or another. When the issue happens, I think you're the victim, right? If somebody comes up and just randomly punches you in the face, you're a victim of that situation. But if you take that and then heal from it, now you've moved from victimhood into survivor, where there seems to be a whole group of people who never get past that victimhood. They just stay stuck there. And it's obviously incredibly problematic for society because it's spiraling out of control. But then it's even one step further, because you brought up like children, right? When it comes to in school getting bullied or name called, a lot of the schools, I can't say all of them, but a lot of them will reprimand the kid for standing up for themselves. So they're getting bullied, but if they defend themselves in any which manner, they also get reprimanded. And at times they're both getting suspended. That happened to my child. And I was absolutely floored because he is a little bit of personal disclosure, but my son is legally blind. Okay, this is a big piece. And this other kid came up and punched him in the face and then proceeded to punch him several times. And my son, I never taught him how to fight with his hands because he's blind. So I taught him how to kick. If you use your legs, you got a bigger surface to land. So he did kick back a couple of times. And because he kicked back, he also ended up getting suspended. But the kid that punched him, they got separated. And then the kid broke out of the teachers had separated that child. He broke away from them, tackled my son to the ground and grabbed him by the hair. He's got long hair, and was trying to smash his face on the gymnasium floor. And somehow, because my son landed a couple of kicks, he also got suspended, right? So it's not even just the kids are being, swayed into this through other means. They're being forced into victimhood. You're forced. If you respond or defend yourself, you're also somehow reprimanded. You're the bad guy. It makes no sense.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad to hear that's the same in Canada as it here is in the United States. I mean, we're not too far apart, in
We're probably worse than y'all.
Yeah, well, I don't think you're worse than America. I think there's some things that are worse, there's some things that are better, there's some things that are the same. This sounds very much one of those things that's very much the same. Because what I see a lot, I work a lot in the schools and what I do 9 to 5. And so I'm in and out of schools all day. But it's always to these kids, it's always, well, if something happens to you, go and tell a teacher. Go and tell a teacher. Go and tell a teacher.
Yeah.
Ask them to stop and then go and tell a teacher. Or go and tell someone. Go and get someone to help intervene and solve your problem for you versus actually trying to, fight back or handle it. And no child who fights back, especially when they were attacked maliciously, which it sounds like in your son's case, no child who's attacked maliciously for absolutely no reason that's at a disadvantage already because of a disability or because of a physical disability or mental or cognitive or developmental, whatever it is, should be held accountable for defending themselves. And this is just in general, disability or not, a child defending themselves shouldn't be at a disadvantage here. They shouldn't have the same reprimandation. I don't know if that's a word, but it sounds like a word. They shouldn't have the same reprimand.
I'll go with it.
That the other child does, because the child who attacked and the child who instigated is the problem here, not the child who is just trying to defend themselves and keep themselves, from getting hurt. That's any response. If that happened and those were two adults, the one boy who is now a man, that kid's going to be charged with assault, and your son's going to have a choice to make as if they want to press charges or not. Either way, the one kid's getting charged with assault, and then the other kid, your kid, is have to make a choice. Okay, do I want to pursue this further? Do I want to do something more with it? Kind of thing, depending on, the situation there. But as an adult in the real world, your son's not going to have that accountability of assaulting. He's not going to have that charge against him. And so why is it in school that basically he's taught that if he defends himself, then he's also the offender in the situation? It doesn't make sense how these things are being given to our kids. And, it's that victimhood mentality being taught to our kids. It's not okay to stand up for yourself. If you do stand up for yourself, you only can do it this certain ways, and these are acceptable, these are not acceptable. And it's a lot of overbear to keep kids safe. And some kids are assholes, straight up. A lot of kids are assholes, and they don't have that like backing, or they think it's okay, they think it's funny, or other kids, there'll be a group of kids. I guarantee that kid that attacked your son was influenced by other kids around him, and he was just the weakest link in that group that said, and they were able to pick on him and influence him to go and do it, because those kids exist in that.
He was a bully. Like, he is the school bully. And in that specific child, that situation spiraled out of control to the point the school had to call the police to have him removed from the school because of his continuous nonstop antics.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I don't know how that kid doesn't get like a restraint hold on him, or have an adult like holding on to him by like the arm or something, or the hand or something, just to make sure, he stays put. Because adults are bigger than these kids, especially if you get a male teacher, a PE teacher, something like that are normally males, and just have them stand there and hold on to him. These kids aren't going to escape that hold most of the time. And you can try to swing on me. If I'm holding you and you're going to try to swing on me, you can go ahead. You're going to miss, and then I'm going to move you as I need to move you, kind of thing. So, I mean, it sucks. And it's kind of like weaponizing that empathy, right? It's like you need to feel bad for him because he hit you, and then you need to feel bad for him because he responded to you. Like, you should also feel bad for protecting yourself. It's like, why do we allow this? And it happens all the time, all around us.
It does. And the other piece is they're not allowing children to learn the critical solving skills. That's you need to learn that from a young age. It takes a lot of practice to build those solving problem skills. And starting in elementary school, that's where you start to learn it. Oh, so-and-so stole my block. Run to the teacher and go tell the teacher and get the teacher to intervene, and the teacher will solve the problem. You're not learning any solving skills at all. Where if it were, the way it was once upon a time, the kids would have to work it out together. But it ends up building resiliency, it builds self-confidence, and it builds problem-solving skills, which are key to life. Like, you're going to have problems forever. That's just, living. But we're not teaching them that at all. We're teaching them run to somebody else. Somebody else will solve your problem.
Yeah, and that's, that creates that opportunity for those who are the aggressors, those who are the perpetrators, if you will, the abusers, to have easy victims, easy targets. Because everyone's an easy target, an easy victim at that point. Because they know they can get away with it. They know nothing's really going to happen that's that bad. They're going to try it once, see what happens, and then, okay, nothing really happened. As I get older, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to try this, and nothing's still really happening. And so then just continues to escalate, because it's never like truly addressed to the point to where it, feels like, oh shit, this is a real consequence. It's actually like hurt me. No, slap on the wrist, here, go back to class, or, call your parent. Parents don't do shit about it, and on with your day. So there's never any consequence. There's never anything that's happened in these situations. So.
And then it ends up spiraling as they age.
Yeah. And then as they age, especially for boys, as they age, then they start to become toxic, right? They start to become toxic men. They start to become the men who are, no good. The men that are, say all the right things, do all the right things, and then end up becoming some kind of abuser in themselves. And it's not great. They become the actual definition of toxic masculinity, to where they can present one way, that they're fine, that they're good and things like that, but behind closed doors, they're not at all that. And so
it works the same for the women, though, too. It turns women into toxic femininity, and they become master manipulators, and they know how to push buttons and pull strings to trick people around them to get their way. They come across as the victim, as an innocent person, when in reality, they're the ones that are instigating the entire problem. So it works on both ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, this cycle that we're talking about here, going from that early victimhood, and then the aggressors turn into, they do more and more. And then, whether female or male, boy or girl, they become the narcissist, right? They become a narcissist, and they're able to, like you're saying here, pull the string and do all these things. I looked up a stat once that, there's, and I talked about it with Hadida Jafari, an attorney in Southern California here, but we talked about it and how, in the UK, there's a staggering amount of domestic abuse between men and women, that the women are the abusers, that the women find these men who are, victims. And again, abusers are on both sides of the aisle, men and women, and victims are on both sides of the aisle, boy, male, and female. And so for this toxic masculinity that we're kind of on, that I kind of moved us towards a little bit, how do you view it? Or how do we differentiate between the harmful behaviors and the actual masculinity itself? Because there's nothing wrong with masculinity, even though everyone and their mother wants to say being masculine is very bad. There's nothing wrong with it. Men should be masculine, females should be feminine. I'm just going to say that, more or less in their own ways, however people want to express that. But how can people differentiate between the harmful behaviors and just the feminine or the masculine behaviors themselves?
That gets really, complicated. It's a weird dynamic, but for the most part, in my observations, and I dive into this in the book, a lot of the problems that are deemed as toxic are just guys being guys. And the recipient of said behavior is either being selfish or they don't understand. And misunderstanding is probably a pretty big part of it as well, because I'm just going to also say it, men and women are different.
Yeah.
We express things differently. And so long as we keep pushing this narrative that men and women are the same or interchangeable, there's going to continue to be a massive misunderstanding in how each acts. For example, that I use in the book, a guy is going to express his affection with a gift or an action. So hypothetically, example, my husband, he changes my tires. It's winter. He changed my tires. That's his act of affection. That is him showing me that A, he's going to go out there and do that because it sure as shit ain't. B, he's letting me know that he wants me to be safe. He wants the winter tires on my car because, I live in Canada. I mean, let's be real. It gets a little icy here.
Yeah, for real.
But that's how he shows his affection, right? It's an action. It's a doing thing. Where women show their affection via touching, right? You hug, you rub the shoulder, rub the back, something along those lines. But they're two very different things. Women are not typically going to go and do an action-based affection. They're going to do an emotional-based affection. And so long as we keep pretending like we're interchangeable, this is going to be misunderstood. And then women just have an expectation that the action is just you being nice. But it's you being nice, but it's also a man's way of showing his affection. And women need to understand small things like that. And once they do, that's when they start to pull away from it's toxic masculinity everywhere. And this is just a guy being a guy. This is how a guy expresses his self, for instance. And then the other piece you have is men naturally just have a deeper voice, right? Like this is obvious. So even when he's talking, not yelling and not being aggressive, but just talking in a stern tone because he's upset, it is boomy. It does rattle women because it's got that fear to it. And most women are smaller, right? They're smaller than the guy. So immediately, because there's fear, it must be toxic. But again, it's not toxic. You're having a response because you're acknowledging that you're a woman and you're smaller. He is just expressing his frustration, like I said, not yelling or aggressive, but just a stern voice. But there's a misconnect there. And that seems to be what the major problem is with this toxic masculinity permeating and everybody thinking, oh, everything's toxic. A good portion of it seems to be misunderstandings. And it's tied to that narrative that men and women are interchangeable. We're the same, but we're just not like base level. We're not the same.
No, and that's 100% true. We're not the same, and one can't pretend to be the other. One can't throw on a dress and get some breast implants and say that there's something and talk in a feminine voice and dress like a woman and say they're a woman. You still have a penis. You can't dress in something and present as something and go into a woman's private space. You don't belong in just because you like wearing dresses and wearing makeup and shit like that and talking in a feminine tone and raising your voice a little bit. That's not normal. It's not normal. Why are we pretending like that's normal? It should be normalized. Like that's not normal. Like, and in the States here, like we want to change the verbiage from pedophile to minor attractive person. No, they're fucking pedophile. Pedophile is a pedophile.
Yes.
You don't get empathy because you are attracted to minors. That's not normal. Stop trying to normalize this shit because it's not normal, right? It's not normal that men wearing dresses and makeup is normal. They should not be around girls. Our kids saying that they're a different name, that they're fucking Twilight from when their actual name is fucking Alex, and they go by Twilight now, and it's a little girl that thinks they're a little boy now, and they want to go by fucking whatever. Like, why do we normalize that? And how we normalize that that's okay? Because like this child, yes, children have imaginations. Yes, children have all these things, but they don't have the cognitive ability to say, fucking 6 years old, like these supposed 6-year-old drag queens say that, oh yeah, I'm a girl, I'm a little girl kind of thing. No, it's like that's been taught to you at some point. And guess what those parents have been doing for many years? Taking them to drag shows, taking them around these people, taking them around these men dressed as women who think they're also women kind of thing. So now this little boy has been essentially indoctrinated to think, well, I'm a girl because they're women. I do the same thing. I must really be a girl. And then, they go through their childhood, they get puberty blockers and hormone treatment and things like that. And, all these things fuck up their biology as they're teenagers and go through puberty and shit like that. And then they come out of it on the other side and they're like, holy shit, I'm fucked kind of thing. I don't want to transition like this anymore. I want to detransition.
Yep.
And the detransitioning process is brutal. I see more and more of it on, social media now that people are coming out as detransitioning, coming off of that and understanding like, holy shit, like I'm waking up. I'm waking up to this because I was fucking fed all these lies and shit like that. And it's really bad. I don't know how I got into this, but I'm glad we got here. But men and women are so different. A man can't be a woman can't be a man. There's different things that, yes, we can do a lot of the same things. Like,
yep.
I work in mental health. I work with a lot of women. I work with men. We can do that. We can both do that. We both have our strengths and we both have our strengths and our, disadvantages.
Weaknesses.
Thank you. Strengths and weaknesses of doing this work. I might be better at working with males. You might be better at working with females. There may be some females that I'm going to be better fit for versus a female kind of thing. And that's okay. We have those. That's okay. There's some jobs that are going to be better for women to do, like working at a daycare or working at a school or things like that. Like that makes more sense because that's more of a woman brain kind of thing. They can handle that. They're more organized. They can do those things. Men maybe aren't
nurture based.
Exactly. Men maybe aren't as successful in those fields. Versus working at a tire shop, we both can do that, but there may be a curb there for a woman that may not be there for men because you have to lift tires and do those things, or there may be those natural deficits and things like that, where men are going to be a little bit naturally stronger to change a tire and, get those bolts and get them off and things like that, and lift and carry a tire and get it back on, and so not saying a woman can't do those things, but there may be more of a learning curve there. Versus for a man, where some of those rough motor skills, those large motor skills are going to come more naturally to men, versus those fine motor skills are going to come more naturally to women. And that's just how biology and things work. And that's just how it works. And one thing I'm going to say here that is going to be pretty controversial is just because you're wearing a dress and I can clearly see you're a dude, you're wearing a skirt and you're trying to present as a woman, I don't have to play pretend with you. I do not have to play pretend. My kids don't have to play pretend with your kids to think that they're also boys and girls, that they're a little girl is now a little boy and vice versa. No one has to play these.
That's where it gets really different between America and Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We had a bill, it was called Bill C4 that passed, and we legally do.
Yeah. Well, no, we just had here in Washington State, I live in Washington State, and come effective the new year, the recording is about 2 weeks before the new year, even though it's going to come out a few weeks after the new year. We had a bill that goes into effect here at the beginning of the year So I guess it's in effect now, according to when this is coming out. Anyway, there's a harassment and bullying hotline for people to call here in the state to where they feel harassed or bullied by someone for whatever reason. Could be it is likely a lot of these bills go hand in hand with other bills. And so there's like 3 bills that are all being passed that all come into effect at different times next year, and they all play hand in hand, and they're all very detrimental. One of them that really bugs me the most is this bill that was signed into law that by October 1st, 2025, all state schools in here in Washington State have to accept a curriculum change by October 1st, 2025 of LGBTQ history. Like, what fucking history is there to learn? Like, yes, there's gay people, and yes, there's all these people that are gay, but why the fuck do my kids need to? How about they learn more Black history? How about they learn more U.S. history? How about they learn more history on why the war started? How about we actually learn about why we actually went to Vietnam, why we actually went to Afghanistan, why we actually went into World War II, why we actually had World War I, why we actually, had Black history, and why we only get 30 days to talk about something that is still affecting our society today. How about we talk about those things and leave the LGBTQ plus history, for never? Yes, it's important. I get it. Sure, whatever. Each their own. I don't see how that's more important than Black history when we still have systemic racism issues going on. How our kids don't even know what World War II was, or what the Vietnam War, or the Cold War, or World War I. They're missing all these other significant events, but yet we want to focus on LGBTQ history. Like, what? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's a weird control, censorship, suppression thing that's been happening, and that is definitely happening in both our country, even in like the UK, right? Like,
Oh, the
but
UK.
there's an
I think the
extra
UK is
arm.
further worse than both of our countries.
Well, Canada is part of the UK. We still
Damn.
have the monarchy.
Damn, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're trying to push through a bill. It's called Bill C-63 that will do the exact same thing of jailing people for posting on Twitter or X,
Yeah, dude.
sorry, and Facebook and things.
Fuck.
Like, we're lock and step. We're still part of the monarchy.
Yeah.
So there's that bit.
But
That's fun.
that's the part here that's different too, is that about these bills, right? They're probably more talked about, like in circles and things like they're not. But you at least
No, that's just a me thing.
that's just okay. Never mind. I was gonna say because that's the same here then, to where people don't know about these bills, right? We currently have a child trafficking or child sex ring, pedophile ring going on in Seattle, where in the last week, 4 adults, between a vice principal, teachers and administration, it's a mix of 4, possibly more, in the Seattle public school area that are being arrested for trafficking, sex with minors, and things like that. Is King 5 News covering it? No. Are any of the mainstream news outlets in the area covering it? No. Who's covering it? Independent journalists? People on Twitter or X or whatever? In these groups that I'm a part of, called Taking Back Washington, we're talking about it, right? Because we care. But why aren't we talking about these things? But also, we also see the BLM movement coming back, and this is unrelated, but there's a little Black girl, killed by an illegal migrant. Not a fucking word from BLM. But yet BLM wants to try to spark protests and stuff that were all shut down rather quickly. So shout out to the police in all those cities. But they want to start protests over this dude that was killed on the subway who was drugged out of his mind, having a schizophrenic episode, and just higher than a fucking kite, threatening women and children, Black women and children. And then they want to spark a fight because they say it's white privilege and the KKK won and all this other bullshit. It's like, no, that didn't win here. A dude who was a Marine stepped in. And, he was trying to go to school. He was just trying to go to class. He's going to class because of the GI Bill. So he's a veteran. So he took an oath to serve and protect his country and from domestic and foreign terrorists and foreign threats, domestic and foreign threats. That's part of their code of the military. They take that promise to protect people from domestic and foreign threats. And he saw a domestic threat that was literally threatening people to death, women and children alike, Black and white alike, on that subway card. And he knew he was capable of subduing this man. And guess what? He just choked him out. He just made him unconscious. That's all he did. What killed him was because he had so many drugs in his system that, the asphyxiation and things like that is what killed him, not Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny did not kill the man. And you can say I'm controversial if you want. Go and look it up. These are the facts.
It's one of those things, right? If you take opiates, your system ends up going into a depression state.
Exactly.
But people misunderstand that term, but your system slows down. So then, yes, with him putting him to the chokehold, that didn't actually kill him. It was the opiate reaction within his system that would have caused his system to go slow, which prevented the bounce back. But had he not been on the opiates,
he would have woken back up and been just fine and
back.
been arrested and gone to jail, and we wouldn't even be talking about this. We wouldn't be able. No one would have known about this. But because it was recorded then after, and the people that were on that car, the people who were actually the eyewitnesses that were there, black or white, have come out and made statements saying, "I was afraid for my life. I'm so glad he stepped in and he subdued him. I'm so glad. I didn't record anything because I was scared. I couldn't record because I was trying to protect my child, and I didn't have a hand free. I was trying to protect them, making sure they didn't get hurt." Kind of thing. So, God bless Daniel Penny. And I'm a biracial man. I have a black family. I want to see a black family member of mine have that happen to them? Absolutely not. No. But if they were on drugs and they were tweaking out and they were making threats and these things were happening, yes, I would want them to be subdued. Yes, I would want them to be, I probably wouldn't want them to be killed, but those were extra factors in all this. Daniel Penny just subdued him. What he did, he subdued a person. I think if people were capable, more people would have been capable of doing that on the train, then they would have done that. I think anyone would have done that, black or white, would have subdued this man. But they were scared. They were fearful. They were feeling like victims in that moment. They didn't know what to do because there was no one there to, protect them or do it for them, right? Or they're just trying to protect children. It's the New York subway system. They've had to do so. New York's had to deploy the National Guard at times on the subway system to keep it safe. Come on, the subway's not the best way of transportation, but they at one point the New York City had to dispatch the National Guard on the subway system for some kind of threat or something that was going on. It was really bad. New York's a fucking mess. It's literally Gotham City. A fucking CEO gunned down in broad daylight.
I saw that.
By some, I want to say there's a connection to MK Ultra, but that's a conspiracy theory there. But we're a digression hole from the whole gender ideology and children kind of thing. Let's regroup here. Back to that. So we kind of shared this. We got off topic here, but I want to get back to this. So gender ideology, especially in kids. Do you think it's a bad idea to? I mean, I personally do, to grant children the autonomy to opt for these medical interventions if they're under the age of 18 or under the age of consent?
Yeah. Absolutely. The biggest piece, and this is the biggest piece in my opinion, their prefrontal cortex is not developed. And for those that don't understand, the prefrontal cortex of the brain is what controls impulse. It's what allows them to control their understanding. Before that's developed, they don't understand fully cause and effect. So with the prefrontal cortex not being developed, it ends up being they do not understand the long-term consequences to their actions on whatever action that is. So when you're, change the topic and switch it to why do small kids climb bookshelves thinking that they're Spider-Man, right? Obviously, an adult does not look at a bookshelf and go, oh yeah, I'm going to climb that. That's what I'm doing. And I'm going to jump off and try and land on the couch because I'm Spider-Man. It doesn't go through an adult's head because our prefrontal cortex is developed and we understand A, cause and effect. B, we have impulse control or should have. And children don't. They just don't. And that's part of their funness. So if they don't have the ability to understand the long-term consequences of their choice, how in the heck is it justified to give them personal autonomy? They don't understand what they're doing, and they don't understand what they're doing and what it's going to cause in 5 minutes, never mind years down the road.
Yeah. No, 100%. And that prefrontal cortex, and I think this should be a part of this here too, to where you can actually fully understand it. But that frontal cortex isn't developed until the age of 25. And so if we're thinking that way here, and this is a great argument here against gender transitioning and medical interventions and gender affirming care, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Chemical castration to children was like what I call it. This should be something that providers should be required, and insurance and law should come down that you have to be at least 25 years of age to make this permanent decision to start this treatment. You have to be at least 25 years of age to be able to do this. Not 18, not 21, 25 years old. We have restrictions on tobacco at 18, alcohol at 21 here in the States, marijuana at 21. So why do we put age limits on that, but not age limits on, chemically castrating children? And
not even just chemically. There was the latest report I read, 14,000 young girls in America have already had double mastectomies done. So it's physical alterations as well.
Yeah, no.
Which is worse.
No, I'm going to look it up right now. Google will figure that out. Let's see. There's nothing recent. There's probably out there. It's probably going to be hard to find because it's all going to be cancer related and things like that. Under how many in the U.S. have had? Oh, there we go. 16 years old. Yeah, so 12 to 16. This is from the National Institute of Health, 2022. Of the 209 patients who underwent the surgery, median age of the referral was 16 years old. So that's a range of 12 to 17. And the most common technique was double incision, so 85%. This is...
Keep looking, because honest to goodness, the one that I read was 14,000.
No,
America wide, but not a specific state. But yeah, it was, I don't want to say for sure, but it was one of the bigger talking people that come out against the gender ideology that had posted the link to the article.
Okay, so a study published in the JAMA Pediatrics reported that approximately 1,130 chest reconstruction surgeries were performed on minors aged 12 to 17 between 2016 and 2019. That annual number increased from about 100 in 2016 to 489 in 2019, so a 380% rise over this period. 2019 to 2021 data and analysis by Reuters identified at least 776 mastectomies performed on patients aged 13 to 17 with a gender dysphoria diagnosis from 2019 to 2021. This figure likely underestimates the total as it excludes procedures paid out of pocket. So that's the way they're kind of getting around it too, is that these aren't going to be reported if they're paid out of pocket or if they're paid privately. And there's always a link here. There's always a link to money in a lot of these children, where the families have a lot of money and a lot of power. Numbers talk, or words talk, numbers scream. Remember that, people. 2017 to 2023, a report from the Manhattan Institute that estimated that between 5,288 and 6,294 double mastectomies were conducted on girls under 18 from 2017 to 2023. Notably, between 50 and 179 of these patients were 12 years old or younger. So almost somewhere from 50 to 200 kids in the last 6 years were 12 years old or younger, having whatever tissue essentially they had at that point removed to not be able to grow breasts and things like that. And that's fine. I'm not talking about a minor's breast. I'm not trying to do that. But what I am trying to highlight here is that, and these numbers, these discrepancies highlight the challenges of obtaining precise count, especially considering factors like out-of-pocket payments and varying diagnostic criteria. Nonetheless, the data indicates a significant increase in such procedures among minors in recent years. Yeah, a 300, almost 400% increase. 2016, there was about 100 of these happening. And I would assume those 100 were kind of like the earliest wokest people. And then maybe kids who actually legitimately had like a diagnosis of like cancer or something that needed to have it removed so that it happened. I would assume like it's probably like an 80-20, or like most of it was probably medically necessary in 2016. But now we see that number boom to 6,000, damn near 7,000 of what's, able to be pulled here quickly. Like, that's a huge increase. And just imagine the discrepancy in there. Like, that's sick. And
you can't, once that tissue's removed, if she decides later on to detransition, there's nothing you can do because the tissue's removed. You can't even get implants.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough skin there to do anything with.
Yeah, and you can't live like a normal life after that, What happens to now wanting to have children? Your uterus is all fucked up. Your reproductive organs are all fucked up. Wanting to have a normal life, wanting to be able to breastfeed your child, you can't, kind of thing. You don't get to have that special bonding connection. because that was ripped away from you at an age that you didn't really understand. You couldn't understand. There's no possible way that a child at 12 years old, let's say 12 years old or younger, there is no possible way at 12 years old or younger, and you can argue with me all the damn day about this. I have girls. There's no possible way that my kids who are under the age of 12 can tell me, Dad, I want to become a boy and have, my breast tissue removed. No, absolutely not. But
No.
another law that came to pass here in Washington is that there, in addition to this bullying harassment hotline, there's also another hotline that children can call to say if they feel like they're at risk, then they can get gender affirming care through the DCYF without parental consent or without parental, information. If they just say, oh, well, I'm at risk. I'm at risk of this happening to me. I'm at risk of abuse, or I'm at risk of them, abusing me or hurting me physically or some way, kind of thing. Oh, okay, we'll take you in then, right? And the kids can just say that, and they can get the gender affirming care that they think that they want at that time. But
that's part of Bill C-4 here.
Yeah.
Parents have no control. You have to confirm whatever the gender is. It makes absolutely no sense, because if we look back, I believe it was in 2016 era, those same children that we're giving bodily autonomy to were eating Tide Pods.
Yeah, no, for real. And so
there was a Tide Pod challenge. It's like, really?
Yeah.
If they're not smart enough to realize eating laundry soap is a problem, how can they possibly suddenly be smart enough to realize that they might want to have a different opinion when they're older? They might want children. They might just be going through a phase or trying to be edgy or whatever it is.
They could just,
doesn't connect.
Yeah, they could just be gay. They could be bisexual. Who fucking knows? Our children don't fucking know. And it's absolutely ridiculous that, okay, here's my argument here. Here's another argument here. How are you okay with the government saying that a woman has a right to her body and to make her own choices, for her body, pregnancy, things like that, when a staggering number, at least here in the United States, I'm not sure what the number is in Canada, but the elective abortions vastly outweigh the actually medically necessary abortions here in the United States. Like, it's not even close in number.
Yeah, same here.
Huge discrepancy there. So you're okay with the government saying that? You're okay with the government either pushing, a federal okay or a federal ban or whatever, things like that, and you want to push and fight against that. But you have no problem with the government saying, oh, we're going to take this choice away from parents who have the best interests of their kids. Don't those sound pretty similar? Choice and bodily autonomy and things like that. Wouldn't you, want to make sure that your kids are protected? That's our job as parents, right? That's what we're told. Is our job is to protect our kids from harm and danger and things like that. Including foreign and domestic threat to them. And so how are you okay with telling me that, nothing here? I just think abortion should be safe, rare, and available. I don't think it should be the common thing that happens and the common thing to do. I don't think you should be able to kill a baby in the third term. I don't think you should be able to kill a baby past, terminate a pregnancy, past when that baby's developing fingers and bones and a heartbeat and a whole nervous system and everything like that. I don't think you should be able to, abort that pregnancy. That's just me. I was almost aborted. And so I speak from that, myself. I was almost aborted. God bless my grandfather, who's now passed, for threatening my biological mother that if she would have had me aborted, he would have killed her. Legitimately, he would have gone to jail. He would have killed her. So God bless him. That's the only reason I'm here, is because I wasn't aborted. Again, all of our mothers had a choice. And you're supposed to have you. And so, sex makes babies. And if you get, if you have unprotected sex and, how it happens and the man lets his things go in you.
Baby batter out.
Yeah, if lets the baby batter out, then, what's going to fucking happen? Don't pretend like this was
my mom was 16.
Yeah.
So I am the result of a teenage pregnancy. But again, it's the same concept. I'm the result of a teenage pregnancy, but I went all through my life. I've gone to university. I've developed a business. I've authored a book. There's all kinds of potential there. It wasn't easy growing up. No, she was a teenager. But that didn't destroy my life. It wasn't, oh my goodness gracious, I would rather not be alive because I, had a rough childhood. Not by any stretch of the imagination. As an adult, I look back and it's like, that made me a heck of a lot tougher. That gave me the ability to be here on this podcast and stand my ground with these hot topic issues. It's, that's that side that people don't like to talk about. As to your point with the late term abortions, my son was born at 32 weeks. So he was born at 7 months, like literally on the day of his 7
very
months.
premature, yeah.
And he was born, he's still alive, like he's thriving.
Yeah,
but
he's fine.
He was born, he was a baby. Like, how, I don't even understand how this is a concept.
Yeah.
That we should be entertaining the idea of aborting their baby. Like, he was a baby. Like, it absolutely blows my mind. And in Canada, it's a national law, but here it can go full term. You can get an abortion anywhere from day 1 to 9 months. And it's like I said, my son was 32 weeks and he came out with hair and skin and nails and breathing.
He has everything, right? And
yeah.
I always wonder, because we're never told, like, what happens to those babies that possibly are aborted in the 3rd term, in the 9th month? Like, do they actually, because I don't know what happens. I don't know how that looks like. Do they actually do they kill the babies, or do they have a heart and send them to a shelter or some kind of...
You guys had a committee, and one of the abortion doctors had spoken at that committee and did explain what happens, and it was really difficult to listen to, but it is pretty grotesque. It is not nice. And the doctor was riddled with guilt while he was describing the procedure that he would have to do and why he was standing against late-term abortions.
So they pretty much have to put the baby down like a dog, is kind of what I'm picking up there. Which is sad, because just imagine, yes, okay, hold on, imagine this, people, okay? What if, yes, you want to have a late-term abortion, yes, okay, because you realize, okay, I went through this, I'm really not ready, I can't handle this, okay, pause. Let's now bring in social services. Let's bring in the people who are trying to adopt, the loving gay couples who are, very happy, very, very well off, very, ready for a child, that can accept a child into their home literally tomorrow, today, that they're already ready. They have a bed, they have a crib, they have all the shit set up. They're just ready. They're just waiting, right? This adoption list runs wild. Like, I'm going to look it up real quick as I'm talking here. How many families are looking to adopt in the U.S.? And so I'm going to search that. But just imagine, okay, so you connect that mother, right, who's about to try to have a late-term abortion or whatever, and realize, okay, I can't do this, or maybe early term abortion after they heard the baby's heartbeat and they're like really wrestling with it because they know they can't handle having that baby. Okay, how about we connect them with the 2 million couples that are currently waiting to adopt in the United States? There's suggesting that there could be 36 waiting families for every child placed in adoption. Over 120,000 children and youth are in the U.S. foster care system awaiting permanent loving homes. 589 children are awaiting to be adopted, a decrease from 2007 by about 20,000. So these numbers, they stay kind of fluid, but there's 2 million couples waiting to adopt. And if you take that 120,000 out of it that are in the foster care system, you still have about 1.8 million couples who are waiting to adopt. And let's see, how many elective abortions happen in the U.S.? Because I'm just trying to compare numbers here, because these numbers, if you put them all together, they make sense. There were, this stuff. So approximately in 2020, approximately 930,160 abortions were performed, equating to an abortion rate of 14.4 per 1,000 women aged 15 to 44. The CDC 613,383 legal induced abortions as of 2022, in 48 reporting areas. So you take the 613, let's say these were all able to be adopted, right? They carried them long enough term to be able to adopt them, plus the 120,000 that are in the foster care system. So then you have about 850,000. You still have 1.2 million families ready to adopt a newborn child, ready to adopt a child in the United States. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Seriously. How the fuck are we allowing these babies to be euthanized? Right? And, yes, I want it to be safe, legal, and for the exceptions, rape, incest, life of the mother. Absolutely. Those should be the exceptions. Those should be it, if you ask me, I've never dealt with it. I pray to God I never have to deal with it. That happens to, a rape. I pray to God there's never incest in any parts of my girl's family on my mother's side, or it's not gonna happen on my side because I will literally kill somebody. And I keep my children far away from people within my own family that could be even potential perpetrators. I keep them far away. But if it's also their life when they're pregnant and it determines their life, I'd much rather, my daughter stay than, risk her life again, but it's going to be her choice. I would advise her to, to protect her life, especially if she has other children or wants to continue to have a future and a husband and, family, things like that, to help her look at the bigger picture. But that's another conversation there. But there's still 1.2 million families available for newborn babies to accept children into their home today. There are 2 million people on the adoption list, and the adoption process is something so hard and difficult. It's so many gates, so many barriers along the way. It's impossible for these families to adopt. But there's 800,000 potential children that could go to these loving homes that are ready for them. 2 million families, 120,000 kids in the foster care system. Like, that's a big gap. There's availability for all these kids to go into a safe, secure home to have a shot at a better future, right?
Yeah.
And so when a family's looking to adopt, they don't really give a shit what kind of kid they got, what the background of the mother is, right? They just want to love on a little baby and set them up for a successful future. They just don't want to see him die. They don't want to see him struggle. They don't want to see these things, right? And so how do we have these staggering numbers? But okay, so back to kind of where I was. I digressed a bit. Hospital, woman walks in to get an abortion. Hey, actually there's 2 million families here that will adopt your baby if you can carry it long enough to term and not abort it. You don't have to. You can sign your rights away. You can give it up for adoption, right? You can give your little baby boy, your little baby girl up for adoption. That's fine. That's an option, but that's never given as an option. That's never talked about. The option is abort or keep. And then if you keep, there's the stigma. It's going to ruin your life. It's going to take over your life. It's going to consume your life. It's going to ruin your fucking life if you have this child. So you might as well just get rid of the child. That's the wokeism, right? That's that argument of this narrative that it's going to ruin your fucking life if you keep the child. And guess what? I have 2 children. I became a dad at 22 years old, so I didn't even have a fully developed frontal cortex when I became a dad. Guess what? My children are the best fucking thing in my life. After my wife, of course. My wife's the best thing in my life. Love her to death. But my kids are the best fucking thing. I know many parents. I know a lot of parents. I don't think any parent truly regrets their decision of having children and raising children. And it doesn't ruin their life. Yeah, it may have created some minor inconveniences in your life. You don't get to do the same things. You don't get to, have as much sleep or as much free time or things like that. But, you can come to terms with those things pretty easily. Those are just minor inconveniences. What I'm saying here is it needs to be an option for these women who are contemplating abortion. It should not be such an easy choice for them to say, I actually just want to get an abortion because that's easier. Just, kill the baby, and get it out of me, and let me move on with my life, and things like that. I've heard it several times on many different podcasts. Women who come on who have had abortions and just the feelings that they carry with them for the rest of their life. Because they were strong armed into the situation because they weren't told their option. They weren't told, shit, there's 2 million families available. Okay, let me work on this process. Let me, register that I want my baby to be adopted. Let's find a family. Let's, expedite this process in the next 3 months, kind of thing, to get this baby.
It's even more than that. You don't understand the level of love until you have a kid. You think you understand. Like, you truly believe you understand what love is and how deep it can go. And then you have a kid and it's like, holy moly, it goes so much deeper than I realized. I would die for this little being in a heartbeat without a second thought. I would throw myself in front of a train, like, without a thought, all to protect this little baby or this child, even if mine are older. So I'm past that inconvenient time of life. Mine are 11 and 14. But even at 11 and 14, like, without a doubt, like, it's not even an option. If it came to them or me, it would be them that survived. Hands down, every day. Because that level of love is, you can't even put it into words. And until you experience it, you truly don't understand it. And then the other aspect is women hear all kinds of women talk about, oh, just get an abortion, oh, get a career, oh, do this, oh, do that. And it always leads to a more selfish-based lifestyle where parenting is not selfish based. If it is, you're doing it wrong, essentially. You have to have a level of selflessness in order to properly take care of a child. But women constantly get berated with you need a career, you need to get, a man or a woman, whatever it is you're working on, but you need to set all these steps up first before you have a kid. And so they abort on that journey before they get to the, finish line. But by doing that, they do end up regretting it. Like I have obviously female friends, and they have made those choices, and 10, 15 years later, they still regret having made them. But it's one of those things that they don't realize they're going to regret it until it's too late. They go into the whole process thinking, okay, this is the best choice. I'm not old enough, or I'm not strong enough, or I don't have enough money, or whatever it is that their thinking pattern is. But they don't realize how big the regret is afterwards. And it doesn't leave. It stays. For many, many women, it stays. And like I'm older, I'm pushing 40. So some of my friends that I've been friends with since teen years, they still regret it 20 years later. And it's like, there's nothing you can do. You can't undo it. At that point, you just have to start coming to terms with, these are the choices that were made. This is what has happened afterwards. But if women were introduced or opened up to other women who did do that choice, like I did, I was 23 and I didn't have my college at that point. I went to college after, when I was a mom. But at 23, that was when I had my first. I was obviously scared. The potential, the option was put there, oh, you can just abort, right? And it's like, me personally, I'm like, that's an option for other people. It's not an option for me personally. And I knew that at that point, but I would never undo that. It's not even an option. Like, it's not an option in my head. I would never not have had my son. And I went to college afterwards. I went to university after college. Like, I've done all the things with children. And my children, not to toot my own horn, they're pretty cool. Like, they're really well-rounded, strong boys. I got boys, but they're well-rounded, strong boys. Like, they didn't lose anything. Like I said, you need a level of selflessness to parent. So when I was in school, I was mom when they were home from school, and I was student when they went to bed. That's when I would put in my studying and put in my, essay writing and so on and so forth. You can work it out. It's just, it takes effort. And then that goes to that, do you want to put in the effort? Well, in the victim mentality world and realm, they don't. And that's part of the problem. That's what's causing a humongous social rift, because they don't have the urge to put in any work. There is no self-accountability or responsibility or desire to pursue something further. It's pointing the finger and blaming others and running from the truth. That's what's going on everywhere you look.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's exactly right. I couldn't have said it better myself. The one part I want to add here is there's this couple. They have an Instagram page called Revive Traveling Ministry. So REVIVETRADELINGMINISTRY. In their bio, it says from transgender to transform. Their story is powerful. Very, very powerful. This is a man and a woman who are both transitioning to the opposite gender when they met, and then they found God, and they found Christ. They turned their lives over. They changed their life. They realized their own biological genders, the power from that, from God, from within that. And I'm, paraphrasing very much here, but they were able to heal. They were able to, kind of save themselves before they went too far off. They gave their lives to God. God healed their heart, things like that. And this isn't for everyone, but it's very much possible. This is a living, walking testimony of that, to how, God saved them, essentially, is their testimony. And now they have children, right? The woman who was becoming a man, she has children now, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful little family. And so they transform, because of, the love they found for their Savior, the love they found in God. And it's such a really cool, beautiful story that's there. And I just absolutely love it. I think it's a great testament here because they were victims at one point, right? But they took ownership of that. They found God. They gave their lives over, and it transformed them. They were able to be transformed. They allowed themselves to be transformed. They allowed themselves to be changed. They allowed themselves to have their eyes open and their ears open. They had eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts that were open to change because they knew, in their hearts what needed to be right, and they were able to change their life. So it's very possible, right? It's
Oh, 100%.
there's options, right? And it all comes back to censorship, and there's these ideologies, they connect. There's so many connections here between government and censorship and the ideologies. They want to push these narratives because they're after our kids, right? They want to continue to push these narratives and extreme, and they want to keep pushing because then that's how they get power, right? That's how they create more division. That's how they create, you're not for me, you're against me. They create all these narratives, things like that. And it's not them, it's also the devil talking as well. We talk a lot about faith on this podcast as well, and it's how they intertwine. If there's a father out there that hasn't read the book Point Man, I would highly recommend the book Point Man. It's a fantastic book. Can't say enough good things about it. It's really good. I think every father should read it. I believe there's also a version for mothers as well, but I could be mistaken on that. But even for mothers, it's a really good book as well. Just on protecting your family and how kind of modern society is after our children and kind of how we got to where we are today. There's a lot of government failures. It's not just the U.S. It's not just Canada. It's worldwide. It's all these first world countries kind of have the same narrative. I mean, you go back and you look at the Olympics, and I've had this rant on there before. But the opening ceremony of the Olympics, yes, it was whatever. You could say it was the Feast of Dionysus and some Greek mythology kind of thing, or you can say it was you could say it wasn't what it was, but it was. So many kids watched that. What it was not okay for children to watch. Men in dresses with beards prancing around on a stage with children, literal children with them, also dressed up as the opposite gender from what they clearly are, and prancing around the stage and, reenacting this feast that, the sacred opening ceremony of the Olympics that we all look forward to every 4 years because we only get it every 4 years to see the best athletes in the world compete. And then we just see all this, and it's like, why? Why does this have to be a narrative every single place we go? We get it. There's gay people. There's trans people that are, claiming to be men that are women and things like that. And it got to the extreme point here in the States recently that, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, bless her heart, was able to put a bill into place in the House that, required biological men to use the biological men's bathroom and women and things like that. And then she was attacked by a trans woman, so a man in a dress, essentially. You can come after me all you want. I don't give a fuck. And attacked her and injured her in the bathroom. Waited her out. Came in the bathroom, attacked her, broke her arm, injured her. And that's okay. That's being applauded. The political violence, this dude, this Luigi Mangione, who gunned down the United Healthcare CEO, is being fucking applauded by so many people left. It's like, how did we get here? When Trump was almost assassinated, people were like, damn, I wish he wouldn't have missed. Damn it, why did he miss? Kind of thing. Like, what the fuck? Like, how are we okay with human lives being taken? It's become so normalized. It's like, okay, cool, take his life. I don't give a fuck. Let's call for more violence. Let's call for more lives to be killed. Let's call for all these things. Let's call for more of an uprising. Like, no, let's not do that. Let's call for the others. Let's call for the opposite.
That's one of those things, and I dive into a lot of policies in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first half is just my story. The second half is I attack policies.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of the twist that's happened with the left for the most part. But it's a moral twist that's occurred where they feel justified or righteous in calling for violence because they are so victimized. So the only way to combat being so victimized or oppressed is through violence. But they miss the fact that they're not actually victimized. And by and large, they are treated as equals. And it's that equal status that bothers them because they're not receiving special treatment. It's the special treatment that a lot of these people seem to think is what should be normalized. But, if you got a whole million or so people, they're all going to be treated the way that they are. Like you get equal treatment clear across the board. And then to your point about the bathrooms, I do not understand how any of these policymakers didn't give a second thought to the exploitation that's obviously going to happen. You have some trans people who are truly trans. Like, you could look at them and you really wouldn't know that they are a transgendered person. In those cases, you're not going to know when they go into the bathroom. You're just not. But when you have the bathroom we're using, a person that walks in with a big old hairy chest and a big old hairy beard, but they're wearing a dress and they declare themselves a woman, that's the exploitation of the ruling.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've also got all of these people who are sex offenders. They have been charged for sexual offenses, but they're also suddenly, oh, well, here's a weak link. I'm going to exploit that, because that's what criminals do. They exploit the weaknesses, and that's how they get their prey. So we are literally opening up a small area, a bathroom, to be exploited, and putting women and girls in there who are often way smaller than myself. I'm a 6 foot tall woman, so like I can give a good go. We'll leave it at that. But most women are not. They are not my size. So we've got potential sexual offenders who have, in the news articles, exploited this, going into the bathroom, which is nobody else in there. There's like nobody else. What are these women supposed to do? But nobody has an answer, because we're so busy trying to accommodate and coddle the quote unquote victim in the situation, but we're ignoring the true victim being the women who are being hurt by the so-called victim, if you follow my crazy circle.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually go in depth into that in the book, because this is what happens. It's the same thing with the addiction issue. Coddle the person with the addiction, but we completely ignore the damage and all of the victims they create through their addiction. But we're confusing, by and large, who a true victim is and who is a victim by choice, who is a victim by circumstance. And it is causing societal issues on large, but a humongous rift, and destroying societal cohesion, because you got people like you, like myself, who are sitting here going, none of this is making sense. This is not working. So we're standing up and standing against this narrative that is being pushed. But then you have the opposing team who are going, but now you're hurting my feelings and I'm a victim. So like, you're not taking accountability that you hurt my feelings. Your stance has put women, myself being one, at risk.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't matter to anybody on that side, right? So this is that rift. We have two opposing forces going at it head to head. And well, now we have conflicts left, right, and center, right?
Yeah.
It's a problem.
100%. And my response to them is that they say my feelings are hurt. Well, fuck your feelings. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at what's actually happening. You're a dude with a beard, hairy chest, going to the women's bathroom wearing a dress. Get the fuck out of there. My wife and my children are trying to use the bathroom. Get the fuck out of there. And go in the men's room. Lift up your dress. Sit the fuck down on the toilet, in the stall, in the men's room where the urinals are. You fucking weirdo. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm sorry if your feelings are hurt. You're not a woman. You will never be a woman. You cannot be a woman. You have a hairy chest and a beard. You will never be a woman. And yes, you could put makeup on. You can grow your hair out. Whatever the fuck you want to do. You're not a woman. You're not a fucking woman. I'm very fucking sorry. Your ID says fucking, I don't fucking know. Jerry. You're not Jenny all of a sudden. You're fucking Jerry still, dude. You're still fucking Jerry. Richard, you're not suddenly whatever female name you want to take on, right? You're not suddenly someone else. Like, you're still the fucking Richard. You still have a dick between your legs. Go into the fucking men's restroom where you fucking belong. You know, some people might look at you kind of weird because you're wearing a dress in public, but that's kind of weird to do from the beginning. And if you go to a restaurant and someone says sir, because they can very obviously tell you're a man, that's not their problem. They don't have to go along with you, except if you're in Canada, I guess you do. But here in the United States, luckily we haven't gotten to that point yet. Hopefully we don't. So I'm gonna get in a lot of fucking trouble.
I had to publish my book through the USA because of the censorship laws in Canada. Yeah. They are so unpredictable that I chose to play safe than sorry. And I published through America because you guys do have freedom of speech. And I'm very respectful in my book. Like, I go out of my way to ensure that I'm respectful. But the topics that I'm hitting and the conversation that I have, it could be deemed as problematic here.
100%. No.
So thank God for the USA.
Well, hopefully and this is just a joke, of course, but Trump wants to adopt Canada as a 51st state and have Trudeau be governor.
Heard.
So, there could be hope in the future for you guys to have some amendment. You guys give us your universal healthcare model, and we'll give you guys the
Oh, you don't want it.
Constitution. No,
You don't actually want our healthcare.
no, we don't. We
You
want
really don't.
not good. Universal healthcare is not all it's cracked up to be, but that's an issue for a different podcast altogether. The last thing I'll say, kind of on the transgender ideology and everything like that, is one thing that really, like, I don't fucking get is when a man is identifying as a woman, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, to be PC, right? But yet they're still with a biological woman, right?
And then they're a lesbian.
Yeah, but it's like, you're still that's what really scratches my head. It's like, okay, wait, hold on. You're a man, but you're still with a woman, so why don't you just stay a man and just be a little bit more feminine, and then you're still doing the same thing. Like, you're still putting your dick in pussy at the end of the day. You're still doing the same thing.
Can't remember the exact name for the clinical name, but it is a sexual fetish.
It's called autogynephilia is the name of the man dressing up as a woman, and then, but it's like you're still fucking the same. You're still fucking the same. Like, there's no difference in the sex you're having. So, like, I get it. That's a mental disorder. Actually, it's actually working on being. I think the DSM is working on classifying that as an actual mental disorder. The autogynephilia, so which is really, really cool to see. It's for treatment and things like that, because it definitely is that it's a mental health disorder. All part of the mental health crisis that first world nations are facing, because of the heavy influence of wokeism and the heavy influence of the left and the heavy influence of all these things. Kind of where we're at, kind of where we landed. So it's really unfortunate. It's really, really, really difficult. So
that is actually part of what I hope that my book helps with, because it's a complicated little book, right? But at the same time, as I'm taking shots at these different policies and how damaging they are, I don't just leave it at that. I also add in solutions. And, you could combat this with actually doing this. If your goal is to truly help, then this would be the course of action, not that. If, like, that's how I work out the whole thing. And here's hoping that we can get a hold of this mental health crisis, because my goodness gracious, is it ever out of control? But a lot of it ties to narcissism.
A lot of it, yeah.
Just does. And part of the problem with narcissism, specifically actual clinical narcissism, is they are unable to admit that they are the problem, right? Because that would then be an ego shot at themselves, and they are not down with taking ego shots. And if you are to tell them that they are the problem, then you cause a narcissistic wound, which anybody who has dealt with a true narcissist, a narcissistic wound is not the backlash anybody wants to deal with. So we are in a very peculiar predicament due to the humongous amount of narcissism that is everywhere. And it is just running right through the mental health community. And like, how do you solve that when those are your actual options? They are not willing to admit they're the problem, and if you tell them, they're going to have a nuclear on you.
Yeah, no, there's a very fine line, and it's not something that can be solved in one or two settings. It has to be developed over time, right? It has to be continuously worked on. And narcissism, those mental health terms are so thrown around, especially here in the United States.
Yeah, they are.
They're thrown around, and so no one actually understands the true meaning of these things. But then everyone on social media wants to talk about these things for people who actually aren't clinical people, who haven't studied it for years of their life, who haven't done many research papers on personality and these theories and things like that, and taken the time to get a degree, and everyone wants to say they're a fucking expert when they read one fucking article or some bullshit like that, right? So everyone wants to say that.
Yeah, narcissism and selfishness. That's what I've noticed. Most people on social media, they deal with somebody who's selfish, and they're like, that's a narcissist. It's like, not quite, but you're getting there. Keep going.
Yeah, no, it's that, and it's so much more too. There's so much more to it. These so many mental health terms are thrown around, which is great, but it's also really bad at the same time. It's like, oh, I'm bipolar, or I had ADHD, or I think I have a personality disorder, or I have this because I self-diagnosed because of Google and things like that when I never went and see anyone, but I'm just gonna say I have it kind of thing. Or I think I'm autistic.
Victim mentality.
I'm thinking like this, or I'm thinking like exactly victim mentality. It's like you really need to go get checked because you got something wrong with you if you're self-diagnosing. But let's get you checked, right? Get yourself checked because you need to. You don't need to keep self-diagnosing and causing yourself stress and anxiety. It sounds like you maybe just have some anxiety. It sounds like you're looking for an answer or an explanation to help settle your mind and ease your mind a little bit, and you're looking for help. Let me guide you to the help here. So it's one of those things, and it's really frustrating to see as a mental health clinician all these things happening on around me. It's like please stop. I don't think you're actually bipolar. I think you just really need some, a couple skills to, work on that anger and work on the mood swings and things like that. And I think you just need some skills to build, or, I don't think you actually have.
Those problem-solving skills that we were talking about in the very beginning.
Yeah.
They don't learn them as children anymore. So by the time they're in their teen years or even early adult years, they have none. They have absolutely none. So every single little thing sends them into a tizzy, be it anger, anxiety, however it manifests, but it sends them into this tizzy, and then they start looking for self-diagnosis. Well, what's the problem? There's got to be a problem. It's like, yes, there is a problem. You're 100% correct, but it's not always going to be a clinical diagnosis in those regards. Oftentimes it is something very simple. Like you need to, like you said, build your skills, build your patience skill. That's a big one that people really don't have a lot of anymore, is patience. Everybody wants things to go quick now, right? And cell phones and media does not help anymore because you just hit the button and go. We have nothing to build patience with. And when you're dealing with like children, like actual children, buying them Legos, that helps actually build patience because it takes time and physical dexterity to connect the little blocks together and create. But it takes patience. You're forced to be patient with that toy. And there's simple little things that you can do while they're growing up to build patience and exploration. That's another one that we don't explore very much anymore, right? We're always indoors, we're online. So we think that we're exploring because we can look up Egypt and look at all kinds of pictures, but you're not getting the full breadth of exploration that we did when we were children, going outside and looking for bugs or building forts and those types of things. And it all is seeming to be a cumulative problem that we are now in 2024, 2025 coming on, really starting to see the head of what the issues are that we've created with not allowing children to solve problems, with the development and boost of social media and the internet and everything going online, COVID being a major catalyst for that, because everything went online and kids had no social, well, depending on where you were, Canada locked down hard. So kids had like no social integration with anybody. Everything was online for almost 2 years.
Yeah. No, we had a huge lockout here too. My daughter was in preschool, and then next thing she knows, she's not in preschool anymore. And then, we're trying to start her into a different like program and different, preschool thing. And now we're online learning, or if there was a spike or something, and, one day we could be in class and next day we could be shut down. If so many kids were coming back and they were sick or had COVID or could have had COVID, and then it's like, okay, we're going to close the site down and then we're going to do online for the next 2 weeks kind of thing. It was such a weird time. Trying to do lessons through a computer and do it with them. And, I'm like, this is complicated. I don't understand this. And it really damaged our kids. We're not going to see the effects of that because that just happened in 2020. And so now those kids that were, 3-4 years old in 2020, now they're 7-8 years old. They were 5-6, now they're 9-10. So now we're only a few years removed from that, and we're not going to see those effects until after they graduate high school, right? So we're still probably at least 10 to 12 years out for most of these kids really understanding what that impact and that lockdown had on these kids and how it affected them psychologically, academically, developmentally, socially, emotionally, mentally. and it's going to be a really cool opportunity for psychological research. I mean, I hope I can do some psychological research about this, in the future, here in about 10 years, when it's really going to be happening. But to understand how these things were impacted our children, and how it's going to impact, generations because of them. Schools change. Schools have completely changed.
Yes, they have.
Day-to-day life has changed, and we all want to return to the normalcy of 2018, of the good old days, as we call it here in America, under the first Trump administration, before COVID, with low gas prices and low inflation and all these things, and the government wasn't after $50 because you fucked up on your tax return a little bit. The IRS didn't have all these agents that were just a bunch of bullshit trying to collect because the government's broke and they don't know how to manage your fucking money, and the Pentagon can't even pass a fucking audit for 7 years in a row, and all this other bullshit, right? We want to go back, but we can't go back, right? We have to be able to accept and move forward and try to rebuild to get to a point that we're on the trajectory to get back from there. And I'm really hoping, so I think this is actually going to come out just a little bit after Inauguration Day, like a week or two after Inauguration Day. So we're on the path to start going through that. We're still about 40 days out from that inauguration right now. So God bless Trump, and hopefully nothing happens in the next, 35 days between now and Inauguration Day in the United States, except the TikTok ban's going to happen by then. So yeah, it's going to be a wild and crazy ride, but I hope over the next, few years, we're able to restore some of these things, restore some of that common sense. We're able to hopefully protect our damn children as parents and have some of our parental rights back, as parents, to protect our children and say, no, I don't want that, and hopefully have more options for school choice. Because school choice does work in a lot of states that do have it. It doesn't work in some areas, but it works in a lot of areas. So being able to fine tune that process, hopefully get a healthier, happier country that's not all obese and on meds, and Ozempic's not pushed because that's the solution to the problem they created, because they created obesity, they created this crisis and whatnot. So now look, magically now here's a drug. Now that the numbers hit where we wanted to hit, and now we'll introduce the weight loss drug. And then we'll just keep perpetuating this cycle and things like that, creating money, hopefully some more regulations come like that over the next few years. So, that's what I'm hoping for. That's why I voted the way I did back in November for President Trump, actually for the third time. I'm a 3-time voter, and every time I voted has been for Trump. So I'll admit that. Voting for him in 16 and in 2024.
Is the same.
Yeah. I'm probably...
My family lives in Texas.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I'm probably one of the very few 3-time Trump voters, 30 or under. But, my first election I could vote in was 2016, and my third election I could vote in was this last one. It's interesting how it all works out. But yeah, so, man, this has been a conversation. This has been one for the ages.
Yes, it has.
So I personally really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you want to add in here or say as we wrap up here?
For anybody that is interested in purchasing Victims of Virtues, it's available on Amazon globally.
Perfect. I love that. And we'll link that in the show notes as well. So, Sasha, thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences with me today, with my listeners today. Your perspective offers valuable food for thought on some of the most pressing issues of our time that are affecting parents and affecting us in our day-to-day life. For listeners who want to delve deeper into Sasha's work, like you said, you can find her book, Victims of Virtue, available on Amazon Global. And it's it's a compelling read that challenges readers to critically examine societal narratives and embrace personal empowerment. So definitely go and snag you a copy. God bless that she can be able to produce her book in her voice and publish it and get it out there, because we are allotted that freedom of speech luxury that's constitutionally protected. They'll never take it from us. They'll never take our guns from us. Those things are protected in our Constitution. So God bless that. God bless America, that we have those things.
Yeah, you guys.
Yeah, God bless the state, the founding fathers for the Constitution, something that will never be destroyed. It's protected by God himself. I truly believe that. I'm truly inspired by him. So thank you all for tuning in to Patriarchy Principles. Remember, fostering open dialogue and encouraging personal responsibility are key components of strong leadership and a healthy community. Let's continue to engage thoughtfully and lead with integrity. Until next time, stay steadfast in your value, cherish your loved ones, and lead with purpose.
Thank you.